We lost our home at 18, but what we found behind that barn changed everything. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and become part of our YouTube family. Don't forget to like the video and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. All right, let's get into the story. The day we got kicked out didn't start loud. That's the strange part. There was no warning, no big sign that everything was about to change. Just a normal morning that slowly turned into something else, something heavier, sharper, impossible to ignore once it began. It started with small arguments, the kind that usually pass, short words, raised voices, doors closing a little harder than usual. I didn't think much of it at first. We'd been through worse. But this time, it didn't stop. The tension didn't fade. It built, layer by layer, until it turned into something final. Pack your things. Those were the words. Not loud, not screamed, but cold. And that made them worse. I remember standing there trying to understand if it was real, if this was actually happening, or if it was just another moment that would pass like the others. But then came the next sentence. Leave? No explanation. No negotiation. Just that. And suddenly it wasn't a moment anymore. It was a decision. I looked at my sister. She didn't react the way I expected. No tears. No arguing. No asking why. She just nodded slightly, like she had already prepared for this. Like this wasn't a surprise to her. That's what unsettled me the most. Wait, what? I said, my voice coming out slower than I meant it to. But no one answered. Not really, because the decision had already been made, and we weren't part of it. We packed in silence, not because we didn't have things to say, but because saying them wouldn't change anything. I grabbed what I could. Clothes, a few personal things, stuff that suddenly didn't feel important anymore, because none of it mattered as much as what we were losing, or maybe what we were being forced to leave behind. When we stepped outside, the air felt different, not colder, just unfamiliar, like the world had shifted slightly and we hadn't caught up yet. Where are we going? I asked. It was a simple question, but it carried everything. Uncertainty, fear, reality. My sister adjusted the strap of her bag and looked ahead. We'll figure it out, she said. Her voice was steady. Too steady, like she was holding something back. Or maybe, like she had already accepted something I hadn't. We started walking. No plan, no direction, just movement. Because standing still felt worse. At first, I kept expecting something. A call, a voice telling us to come back, that this was a mistake, that it wasn't real. But nothing came. Just silence, the kind that makes everything feel more permanent. Hours passed. The road stretched out endlessly in front of us. We didn't talk much. There wasn't anything useful to say, just occasional questions about where to go, what to do next. None of them had real answers. The sun climbed higher. The heat settled in. And slowly, reality started to sink in. This wasn't temporary. We weren't going back. We had to figure things out on our own. That thought hit harder than anything else, because it meant something I wasn't ready to admit yet. We were alone. Completely. By the time we reached the edge of the rural area, I was exhausted. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally. The kind of tired that comes from carrying too much at once. Fields stretched out around us. Dry. Quiet. Endless. There were no people. No movement. Just wind brushing through tall grass and the occasional distant sound of something unseen. It felt forgotten, like a place no one cared about anymore. There, my sister said suddenly. I followed her gaze. An old barn stood in the distance, leaning slightly, weathered, broken in places. It didn't look safe. It didn't look comfortable, but it looked like shelter. And right now, that was enough. We walked toward it slowly, each step heavier than the last. The closer we got, the more details became clear. The wood was faded and cracked. Parts of the roof had collapsed. The doors hung unevenly, barely attached. This is it? I asked quietly. She nodded. It's better than nothing. I didn't argue, because she was right. And right now, better than nothing was all we had. We stepped inside. The smell hit immediately. Dust, old wood, time. Light filtered through gaps in the walls, creating thin lines across the floor. Everything felt still, like it had been waiting. Or maybe, like it had been forgotten. We dropped our bags near the wall and sat down. Neither of us spoke for a while. There was too much to process, too much to understand. This isn't forever, I said after a while. I don't know why I said it. Maybe to reassure her. Maybe to reassure myself. She didn't respond immediately. Then she said, I know. But her tone wasn't convincing. Not completely, because neither of us really knew what forever looked like anymore. Time passed slowly. The quiet stretched on. I couldn't sit still. Not with everything running through my head, so I stood up and started walking around, exploring, not because I expected to find anything, just because I needed to move. That's when I noticed it, behind the barn. Near the far wall, something felt off. Not obvious, subtle, but enough. Hey, I called. My sister looked up. What? Come here. She walked over, brushing dust from her hands. What is it? I pointed at the ground. There was a section that looked different, slightly sunken, covered with old boards and debris, like someone had tried to hide it or protect it. We both crouched down. I moved one of the boards aside, then another. The dirt shifted slightly, and then we saw it. A narrow opening, dark, hidden, real. What is that? She whispered. I leaned closer, trying to see inside. It wasn't just a hole. It went deeper, far deeper than it should have. Wooden supports lined the sides, disappearing into darkness. A tunnel. It had to be. Cold air drifted out from it, carrying a faint, unfamiliar scent. Not decay. Not emptiness. Something else. Something preserved. My heart started beating faster. Not from fear. From curiosity. From something I couldn't fully explain. This wasn't natural, I said quietly. No, my sister replied. Someone made this. We both stared at it, neither of us moving. Because in that moment, everything changed. This wasn't just a broken barn anymore. This wasn't just a place to survive. This was something else. Something hidden. Something intentional. Should we go in? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. I looked back at the tunnel, at the darkness waiting inside. And for the first time since we were kicked out, I didn't just feel lost. I felt like we had found something. Something that mattered. Something that could change everything. And as I took a step closer to that hidden tunnel behind the barn, I had no idea. We weren't just about to explore it. We were about to step into a future we never saw coming. The moment we stepped into the tunnel, everything outside felt distant. Not gone. Just far away. Like the world we had just left didn't belong to us anymore. I went first, carefully, each step slow, testing the ground before putting my full weight down. The wooden supports along the sides looked old, but they held. Whoever built this hadn't done it carelessly. Stay close, I said. I am, my sister replied quietly. Her voice echoed slightly, softer than usual, like the tunnel absorbed sound and gave it back in pieces. The light from the barn faded behind us quickly. Within a few steps, it was just a dim glow. After that, darkness. Not complete, but close enough. I used my hand to feel along the wall, guiding myself forward. The air felt different here, cooler, still, not the kind of stillness that feels empty. The kind that feels preserved, like this place had been untouched for a long time. How far do you think it goes? I asked. Far enough, she said. That answer didn't help, but somehow it felt right. We kept walking. The tunnel wasn't straight. It curved slightly, making it impossible to see what was ahead. That made every step feel heavier. Not out of fear, but uncertainty. There was no turning back quickly if something went wrong. But neither of us said it out loud, because turning back wasn't an option anymore. Not really. The deeper we went, the more I started noticing things. Details, marks along the wood. Old scratches, signs of use. This wasn't just built, I said. It was used. Yeah, my sister replied. For a long time, I think. That made me glance back at her. You think people lived down here? Maybe not lived, she said, but stayed, prepared. Prepared. That word stayed with me, because it meant something more than just building. It meant planning, thinking ahead, expecting something. We walked in silence for a while after that. Then I saw it, a faint light, far ahead, barely visible at first. I stopped. Wait, do you see that? My sister leaned slightly to the side. Yeah. It wasn't bright, but it was there, real, and getting closer with each step. We picked up the pace, not running, but faster, because now the tunnel wasn't just a path. It was leading somewhere, and that somewhere mattered. The air shifted slightly as we got closer, less heavy, more open. And then, the tunnel widened. The walls pulled back. The ceiling lifted. And we stepped into something unexpected. A room, underground, hidden, but clearly built. Not natural, not random, intentional. We both stopped at the same time. Just staring. This isn't just a tunnel, I said. No, my sister replied softly. It's a place. The space wasn't huge, but it was enough. Enough to stand comfortably, enough to move around. Shelves lined one side of the wall, old, but still standing. A wooden table sat in the center. Several crates were stacked neatly nearby. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, but nothing was destroyed. Nothing was broken. It had been left, not abandoned, preserved. Whoever built this, I started. Knew what they were doing, she finished. We moved forward slowly, not rushing, because something about the space demanded respect, like it wasn't meant to be disturbed carelessly. I reached one of the crates and opened it. The lid creaked slightly. Inside, tools, old but solid. Metal, not rusted through, carefully placed. These are still usable, I said. She opened another crate. Blankets. Folded. Protected. Why leave all this? I asked. She didn't answer right away, because she was looking at something else. On the table, a small metal box. Different from everything else. Cleaner. More deliberate. She stepped closer and opened it carefully. Inside, papers, maps, notes. I moved beside her, leaning in. The papers weren't random. They were organized, structured. This is planned, she said quietly. What do you mean? Look, she pointed. The map showed the surrounding area. The barn, the fields, paths we had walked without realizing, and the tunnel, marked, detailed, with sections labeled. This wasn't just a hiding spot, she continued. It was designed. I felt something shift inside me, because she was right. This wasn't accidental. This was built for a reason, a purpose. But for what? I asked. She shook her head slightly. I don't know. We stood there in silence, taking it all in, because whatever this was, it was bigger than we understood. I picked up one of the papers. It had notes written across it. Not easy to read, but clear enough to understand one thing. Someone had expected this place to be used, not just once, but over time. I looked around again, at the shelves, the supplies, the structure. This could actually help us, I said slowly. She nodded. More than help, she replied. This could change everything. And that's when it hit me. For the first time since we were kicked out, we weren't just reacting anymore. We weren't just moving without direction. We had something, a place, a possibility, a chance. I sat down on the old chair near the table, exhaling slowly. My mind was racing, not with fear, with questions, with ideas, with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control, not over everything, but over something, and that was enough to start. My sister was still looking at the map, studying it, understanding it faster than I was. There's more, she said suddenly. What? She pointed to another marking, a line branching off from the main tunnel, smaller, less clear, but there. This doesn't end here, she said. I stood up immediately. What do you mean? She looked at me. There are other paths. I turned back toward the tunnel entrance we came from, then back at the room, then at the map again, and for the first time, I realized something bigger than everything else we had just discovered. This wasn't just one hidden place. It was part of something larger, something connected, something built with intention beyond just survival. And as that realization settled in, One thought became impossible to ignore. We hadn't just found a tunnel. We had stepped into something we didn't fully understand yet. We didn't leave the tunnel that day, not because we couldn't, because we didn't want to. For the first time since being kicked out, we had something that didn't feel temporary, something that didn't feel like it would disappear the moment we stepped away from it. It wasn't just shelter. It was possibility. We started small. That's what my sister said. "Don't rush it," she told me as I picked up one of the crates again. "If we try to understand everything at once, we'll miss what matters." I nodded, even though part of me wanted to explore every corner immediately. But she was right. She usually was. So we focused on what was in front of us. Cleaning, organizing, understanding the space. The dust wasn't thick, but it was everywhere. Like time had settled gently over everything instead of destroying it. We wiped down the table first, then the shelves, the blankets, the tools. Every small action made the place feel less forgotten, less abandoned, more alive. "This place wasn't meant to stay empty," I said quietly. My sister glanced at me. "No," she replied. "It was meant to be used." That thought stayed with me, because it meant something bigger than just luck. It meant timing. It meant purpose. It meant we didn't just stumble into this by accident. At least, that's what it felt like. We brought some of our things down from the barn. Not much, just enough to make the space feel ours. Our bags, a few personal items, things that didn't seem important before but felt different now. Because now we had somewhere to put them, somewhere that felt like it could last. As the hours passed, the tunnel started to feel familiar. Not comfortable yet, but less unknown, less distant. We learned where the floor dipped slightly, where the supports creaked, where the air shifted between sections. Every detail mattered, because every detail told us something. "This wasn't built quickly," I said at one point, running my hand along one of the wooden beams. "No," my sister replied. "It took time, planning, and effort," I added. She nodded. "Yeah." We sat down after a while, both of us quiet. Not because there was nothing to say, but because there was too much. Everything we had been through, everything we had just found, everything that could come next. It was overwhelming, but not in a bad way. In a way that made you realize things could change, really change. "Do you think we can stay here?" I asked. She looked around slowly, taking in the shelves, the crates, the tunnel behind us. Then she nodded. "For now," she said. "Yeah, for now," I repeated. That was enough. The next few days changed us more than we expected. Not all at once, but piece by piece. We started building a routine, simple things. Waking up, checking the tunnel, organizing supplies, exploring small sections we hadn't looked at yet. It wasn't exciting, but it was steady. And after everything we had been through, steady felt like progress. We found more tools, more notes, more signs that this place had been used carefully, intentionally. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Whoever built this, they thought ahead. And now we were learning from it, adapting, growing. One afternoon, my sister called me over. "Look at this." I walked over to where she was standing. She had the map open again. But this time she was pointing at something different. Another path, faint, hard to see at first. But there. "This leads somewhere else," she said. "Where?" "I don't know yet," she replied. "But it's not here." I looked at the map, then at the tunnel behind us, then back at her. "You want to check it out?" She hesitated. Not because she was unsure, because she was thinking. Then she nodded. "Not today," she said, "but soon." That answer told me something important. We weren't rushing anymore. We weren't reacting. We were choosing. And that was a change I hadn't noticed until that moment. Days turned into weeks. The barn became less important. The tunnel became more. Not just as a place to stay, but as a place to build from. We fixed small things, reinforced weak areas, organized supplies better. Every improvement made a difference, not just physically, mentally, because each step forward reminded us we weren't stuck anymore. We were moving, even if it was slow, even if it was uncertain. It was still forward. One evening, we sat near the entrance again, the same place we first found it, the same ground that had once looked ordinary. Now it felt different, like it held something more. "Do you ever think about that day?" I asked. She looked at me. "The day we got kicked out?" "Yeah." She thought for a moment, then nodded. Sometimes. I stared out toward the empty fields. How does it feel now? She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, different. Different how? Before it felt like we lost everything, she said. Now, it feels like that's what led us here. I let that sink in, because she was right. If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have found this place. We wouldn't have had this chance. I looked down at the tunnel entrance, at the darkness that once felt unknown. Now it felt familiar, almost safe. This place saved us, I said quietly. She nodded. Yeah, she replied. But we also chose to step into it. That stayed with me, because it was true. We could have walked away, ignored it, stayed on the surface. But we didn't. We took the risk. We moved forward. And because of that, everything changed. I stood up slowly, looking out at the horizon. The world hadn't changed. The fields were still empty. The barn was still broken. But we weren't the same anymore. We had something now. Not just a place, a direction, a future we were building ourselves. And as I looked back at my sister, who had stayed steady through everything, I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were becoming something stronger than what we left behind.